So there's a part in this episode of Fruits Basket where the Yuki Fangirl Club is going over the rules and regulations of how to worship Yuki as their basically idol and god, and the narrator for this like 20-second sequence gave me Kaguya-sama Love is War vibes, because in that show, if you've never watched it, the narrator goes in when describing the shenanigans that we're seeing that are so ridiculous and high school nonsense, and it sells that comedy so well. And then you'll see this list of rules they've made for worshiping Yuki, and the fact that this narrator just went in and just made it so ridiculous, it just tied together something that could have been easily disposable and just you wouldn't have cared about into one of the most memorable scenes of a pretty funny episode overall, and I really enjoyed that. Not to mention Saki's brother at the end of the episode saying how he would walk with them basically to take Toru to work because he loves being surrounded by older women. It's like, some of the lines in this show, they are just so quick that if you don't really pick up on them, it's not a big deal. It's not like going to tamper with an episode, but when you do, they are just standout lines that just leave me laughing. I'm like, God bless this show, because it is an absolute delight. So this week's episode, we get a very Prince Yuki fangirl focused episode, and also get some pretty nice and sweet moments surrounding Saki herself. This is the only group that I've said up to this point that I haven't liked in terms of like their personality, because everyone in this show is flawed, and even if you look at someone like Octo, I'm sure there is a reason for the cruelness that is happening there, but it's still a great character that kind of makes the show into what it is, because without the cruelty, Fruits Basket wouldn't be nearly as memorable. But the Fangirl Club, even though I've laughed at them, I've always been like, if I have to point to one character or one set of characters I don't like, it's them. After this episode, I like them too. It's not like they really changed or developed, but I think their humor, it's similar to the biker gang that was kind of tagging along with Arisa, and I just love how they are just so ridiculous on a visual level. But then when you see like what goes on in their head, they're just so childlike, and I love it. The theme of this episode is actually pretty relatable on both sides, no matter kind of what spectrum you fit into, because the idea of like high school nonsense with love, especially if you like someone, if it's your first like, your first quote-unquote love, which most likely isn't a love, you just think it is, or it's like you want it to be one of your first relationships, right? No matter what, there's always going to be someone throughout your school life that you look at from a distance and say, I think I love them, or I think I like them, and I deserve to be with them, not this other person. I'm so much better. I treat them better. It's a lot of nonsense. And I like the idea that this episode, it brings up, just because you like someone doesn't give you basically law over them, and that you can dictate how they live their life, or that they should break up with someone and go with you. It's like, that's such an important lesson that, unfortunately, a lot of people going throughout school, they don't learn that until very later in their life. Most high school kids will act this way, but even a lot of young adults, hell, even some older adults, they still have this mentality that they think they are obligated to something because they want it. And I like the idea that you take such high school nonsense such as this fangirl club that are worshiping Yuki, thinking no one's good enough, not even themselves, and that if someone else is walking alongside him, it's basically tampering with their feelings. And it's like, yeah, maybe someone being with someone is hurting your feelings because you like them, but the thing with it is if two parties agree to something, it doesn't matter what your feelings are anymore. It doesn't matter if you like someone, if two people like each other, that's that. Yeah, you can wait on the sidelines and see if they eventually break up, sure, but why spend your life waiting for something instead of acting and kind of finding something in the present that you want? It's just such a very simple, but I think it's a pretty important lesson overall that I'm glad Fruits Basket did touch upon, because there's a lot of serious elements to the show. A lot of dramatic, a lot of stuff that maybe you don't personally see in your own life or see reflected when you look back throughout your past or what's currently going on around you, but it does feel relatable and realistic. This is something that is so basic, so just high school nonsense, but it's something that is important, and I think in a story such as Fruits Basket, it's good to have something like this occur. Not only do you just get a lot of funny sequences, look at the character designs for these girls. I think they shifted up art styles about 12 times throughout this episode, but you also get something that not only just relates to them and how you get the words of wisdom from the brother being like, you know, jealousy and just the idea of entitlement isn't healthy, you shouldn't do this. You even get Saki, who admits that she was kind of feeling the same thing, because now that Toru doesn't just need her two closest best friends, now that she has the Soma, she doesn't just even have to kind of blow them off for work, she just has other plans with other friends that she's made, and she does admit that she tries to push away from that mentality, but it doesn't, because it's human nature. You've been with someone for so long, you've only had this close group of friends, and now someone's getting a bit more popular. And even though you don't hate these characters, you feel a bit sad. It's something that's just so human, and I love the idea that Toru, because she just disregards her own kind of needs and what she should do, she should go to work, she shouldn't push the work back, but she comes because she's worried about her friend because she looked gloomy. It's just something that's so nice and pleasant, where it has all this ridiculous comedy, but it has such a human and teenage melodrama moment where a bunch of characters like the hot guy in school, and because the not so popular girl was walking with him and basically seemingly is very good friends with him now, they all hate him because they feel entitled to Yuki's love. It's something that is so goddamn human on all sides of the spectrum throughout the high school life, and hell, even in adult life, when some people decide not to grow up and think that they are on some pedestal and their needs are the most important thing in the world. That's what I love about Fruits Basket. You can take the simplest and most disposable of topics, which in a lot of series set in high school, it wouldn't be that impactful, because this would probably be the highlight of a lot of shows set in this type of setting. Where with Fruits Basket, this isn't probably going to be the story that everyone's going to write home about from the first season, but it still is a story and episode that is great by itself, that just lets this cast flourish and take characters that I've been saying I think they're funny, but I don't really like them, and it turn them into someone I'm like, you know what, I'm glad they're a part of this show. They add a flair and they add this realistic charm that I think is important for a series like Fruits Basket. It doesn't just have to be these curses that take real world problems and make them even more twisted. It can just be the high school hormones and just everything else that's going on in a person's body, where you don't really think rationally, you think with your heart, and that heart isn't always the best thing because it's being kind of manipulated by all the chemical imbalances going on in a growing person's body, and that's what's super interesting about it. This episode was definitely one of the most funny, I think, of the season, which is interesting because even though I thought these characters were funny, just seeing them in the background, getting the demon eyes from just our girl, and I just love how they call her Demon Queen and Toru a witch. Usually I'd be pretty mad that you're calling Toru a witch, but when it comes from them, you just can't help but laugh, especially with how they stylize her character model in a lot of these sequences. But it's so interesting how their scenes, similar to the biker group, it's just ridiculous. You can't help but laugh. You can't help but just take a pause. You kind of look at it and say, this is Fruits Basket, the series that stabs us in the heart. But they can also do sequences like this, and it just makes us have fun at the end of the day. And that's what I really appreciate about this episode. It's something that it just felt like a good breather episode. It felt like it had that human and relatable touch that every single episode has had. But most importantly, it's showing us that even the most random of characters within the show are going to have their chance to shine. It doesn't just have to be the big Soma curses. It can be the high school bullies who we thought are just dicks, which they are dicks, but also give them some human moments to make us feel like, yep, most people are going to be stupid in this way at some point throughout their high school, public school, just some point in their life. They're gonna act like this in some way or another. Maybe not in this exact way, but you can kind of see yourself being like, yeah, I've kind of had stupid mindsets like this back in the day. And I appreciate that every character on the show is flawed and just tortured in some way or another, and it just allows Fruits Basket to continue to rise. And even though this episode of Fruits Basket isn't going to make a lot of people say, okay, Fruits Basket just rose another notch in terms of just the power in its writing, it still did slightly elevate it up. I think every episode has in some way improved on the formula, has shown us these characters in a different light, and I don't think there's been an episode that's dropped the quality. It's only slightly or majorly increased just based on what we see. Not even just if the arc's better or not than another arc. It just feels like the longer we watch these characters, the more human they feel, and the more breathing of an environment this feels like, as if it's a real world with its own problems, sometimes with the supernatural curses and other times with just high school nonsense. And all of it works out quite well. If you haven't seen my video that I released on Wednesday, I believe it was, I released a Toru Honda character analysis. If you haven't checked that out, be sure to do so. Pretty good video overall. I'm pretty happy with the response. I've seen a lot of people ask like what types of videos I'm going to do on Fruits Basket. This season ends in 4 episodes. I think I might do one more big video about Fruits Basket before we eventually get into the second season. It really depends on how the season ends and if the material of what I'm thinking is going to be there or not. But I do have quite a few videos planned. I'm not going to do a character analysis for every single character in this show. I just don't have the drive to, but I definitely at some point will do a Kyo, a Yuki, Akito, Shigure. Those will get character analysis, most likely within its final season or second season, depending on how the arcs kind of play out. Definitely won't do it anytime soon, but I also want to do, like, when the series does end, some form of either analysis or review, and then also there's a topic I want to do when we get into probably the second season, maybe in the midway point of it, where I want to do a video on how abuse is basically portrayed in Fruits Basket and how it's actually really well done and not like an edgy thing or anything like that, but how abuse uses just apply to all these characters overall. So those are the videos I'm pretty much thinking as of right now. Most of those should get videos, if not all of them, and maybe I'll do a few more, but those are what I'm thinking as of right now. But yeah, so the Toru video, if you haven't watched it, be sure to. It's kind of like a collective thought of everything that I've said about her character up till now, and really it's built because people calling her a Mary Sue need to stop, and I think that video does a really good job at beating you over the head in a very intelligent way of saying, this is why she's not. Stop calling her a Mary Sue. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. But let me know what everyone thought of this week's episode. It was a very funny episode, so I'll be interested to hear maybe what your favorite joke or sequence was in this episode. So let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video though, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.